Hi everyone, it's Scott here, and today we're going to find out the truth about foreign buyers. Are foreign buyers responsible for our housing affordability crisis? Okay, so Australian property is always a hot topic, and one of the big questions I get and what I see all over social media is people deciding who to blame for the current housing affordability crisis. And one of the groups of people that cop a lot of heat are foreign national buyers. So there's an idea in some people's minds that there are these evil people overseas and they come into Australia, they bid up on all of the property and they force property prices up. Well, is this the truth? So in this video, I'm going to reveal and unpack with you all of the data so that you can make up your mind. What is the true impact of foreign nationals on our house prices? First, let's clarify what we mean by foreign buyers. Now, there are two main groups. Now, group number one is offshore investors. Now, offshore investors are foreign investors living in another country that invest here in Australia. They buy a property to rent it out, so they essentially become a landlord of that property, rent it out to Aussies, and they buy it for the purposes of wealth creation, and they're living overseas. Group number two are onshore foreign nationals. Now, these are typically two groups. Group number one are students here, so they're on a student visa here, and they buy a property here locally in Australia, or they're on a temporary skilled visa. So they're a professional, they're a foreign national, and they might be here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years working here in Australia, and during that time, they are eligible to buy an Australian home. So let's actually take a look at the data. So I've got a table here, I'll put this table up, and we're gonna run through these numbers. So we can only get really good data back to 2015, 2016, up until 2023, but that's gonna be enough data to build a picture to understand what's going on here. So let's take a look at this table now. So you can see here in 2015, 2016, the total approvals for foreign nationals to buy property here in Australia was just over 40,000 approvals. What do we mean by approvals? So there is a foreign investment review board here in Australia, and any foreign national, whether living onshore here in Australia or living offshore overseas, if they want to buy any asset here in Australia, not just residential property, but commercial property, farmland, invest into a business here, any foreign national that wants to invest into Australia must get pre-approval from the Foreign Investment Review Board. And what this board does is check to see that that investment is within Australia's national interest. And if they don't get that rubber stamped by FIRB, then they are not allowed to make that investment. So for residential properties in 2015, 2016, that was just over 40,000 approvals by the FIRB board. Now, let's break down into those two groups, temporary residents and foreign non-resident nationals. So you can see here for temporary residents, these are people onshore in Australia. This made up 10,923 approvals to buy property. And to foreign nationals, this made up 29,226 approvals to buy property. Now you need to know that not all approvals wind up being a purchase, but for the purposes of this table, we're going to assume that every approval is also a purchase, but in reality, purchases are actually less than approvals. Now, these purchases by foreign nationals onshore and offshore only made up 7.3% of all property purchases in that year, just 7.3%. Now, what's interesting is we can break up that 40,000 purchases by purchases of brand new constructed property. So this is typically off the plan property, and a lot of it is off the plan apartments. And we can also break it down by existing properties. So these are properties which are already built. Someone is living in that property now, it's an existing property, and the foreign national, onshore or offshore, wants to buy that existing property. Now you can see here, it's interesting that 72% of all purchases were purchases of brand new, newly constructed property, much of that off the plan apartments. Now this can be very good for Australia in terms of our housing affordability, because when we build brand new property and we've got buyers of brand new property, this adds to the pool of new property getting built and constructed every single year. We know that we've got about 30% of the population that rent. Some would like to buy, some are very happy renting. But if we don't have enough people building brand new property for renters, it can actually create a rental crisis. And we've actually just experienced that in the last few years. Now, in terms of the existing property, now there are some rules because foreign nationals are actually generally banned from buying existing property. They are only allowed to buy brand new property because it's in the national interest to have overseas money, build and construct brand new property to add to our housing supply, to keep property prices down and to keep rents down. So how then were 28% of these foreign nationals able to buy an existing property? Well, there are a couple of times when they're allowed to do that. So for a foreign national who's on a skilled visa, when they arrive in this country, are allowed to buy an existing property if they live in it and it's their primary place of residence, but they are required to sell that property when they leave Australia. So that is one exemption. The other exemption is if you're a foreign national living overseas and you're buying an existing property, but your intention is to actually knock that property down and turn one property into 3 properties or more and actually increase the housing supply, then you're also allowed to buy an existing property. So let's just take a look at the trend of the percentage of total transactions, and it has been reducing. So you can see in 2015, 2016, total transactions of foreign nationals was 7.3% of all transactions, all property purchases. Now, this has now declined to 2020 to 2023, which is the most recent time we can get really accurate data. It's now below 1%. Now, this is a very small amount, and as you can see, approximately 65% of that 1% is for brand new, newly constructed property, mostly off the plan property, which actually helps to ease the housing crisis which we have here. So the argument can be made that we actually want more foreign nationals to be buying brand new property in this country. That's because we actually need capital to be able to build brand new property. So we're either relying on government via taxation and taking some of that taxation to build more homes, or we're relying on Aussie mum and dads to become property investors to build and construct that property, or we're relying on Australians that want to build their home for them to move into and live in, either a first home buyer or someone that wants to upgrade or downsize into a brand new constructed home. Now, there are a lot of barriers to actually building and constructing a brand new home. Most people prefer to actually target an existing property because it's already built, they know what they're buying, they can inspect it, they can touch it, they can feel it, they can see themselves in the property, and primarily they're looking at existing property. So we do need a group of people with capital to build and construct new property, and foreign nationals that have a wealth of money all over the globe could be one such source of people to bring money here so that we can build more housing to ease the housing affordability crisis and also ease the rental crisis by increasing the amount of supply of property in this country. Now, different countries around the world have very different rules around this. For example, in some Asian countries, they don't allow you to buy houses, they don't allow you to buy land, but if you're buying an off the plan, brand new constructed apartment in a high-rise building, they will allow you to buy that. And what that means is these countries that need more housing, they're not giving up land, they're not giving up housing to foreign nationals, they're only allowing foreign nationals to add to the apartment supply. Now imagine if today we had another 100,000, 150,000 apartments in Sydney. What if we had another 50 to 100,000 apartments in Melbourne or Brisbane? This would increase the supply. It wouldn't utilize any additional land here in Australia, and the foreign nationals would be overseas, not living in the property. These properties would be available for rent. It would bring rents down and it would make rents more affordable. So given the table and given the data, I think it is very clear that foreign nationals are not responsible for our housing affordability crisis and they're not responsible for our rental crisis. And I think it could be inferred, and if you look at the data, it could be hypothesized that if we had more foreign nationals buying off the plan, brand new constructed apartments in this country, we could actually double or triple the amount of apartments which we have in our great cities. The data does show a declining trend, a massively declining trend in foreign nationals buying property here in Australia. And in fact, less than 1% of all property transactions are by foreign nationals, with 65 to 75% of those transactions being for brand new property. So thank you for joining me on this really important topic. I hope this has shed light. I'd love to hear any experiences that you've had. I'd love to hear from you. Is this brand new information for you? Has this information shocked you or changed your opinion? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like this video and also subscribe to the channel so I can give you more property updates like this. Thank you.